Gas stations are supposed to be safe stops, places to grab a drink, stretch your legs, maybe use the restroom. But if you've ever pulled into one late at night, you know how unsettling they can feel. I've worked the overnight shift at gas stations off and on since I was 19. Most of the time it's boring, stocking shelves, wiping down counters, or waiting for the occasional traveler to come in. But every once in a while you get the kind of customer that makes you rethink working alone in the middle of the night. This happened a few years back at a station off a rural stretch of highway in Ohio. It was a Tuesday night around 1 in the morning. Dead quiet. I was scrolling on my phone behind the counter when the door chimed. A guy in a gray hoodie walked in, hood pulled tight around his face. He didn't come straight to the counter. Instead, he wandered slowly through the aisles, picking up a bag of chips and putting it back, opening the drink cooler and then closing it without grabbing anything. The whole time, he kept glancing at me. Long stares that made my stomach twist. Eventually, he came right up to the counter, but he didn't set anything down to buy. He just asked, "You working alone tonight?" I tried to laugh it off. "Yeah, just me." He leaned closer. "That's dangerous, don't you think?" My mouth went dry, but I pointed to the cameras. "We've got everything covered." He looked up at the cameras, smirked, then walked out without buying a thing. I figured that was the end of it until I saw him still standing outside by the pumps. He wasn't fueling up, just standing there, hands in his pocket, watching the store. 10 minutes passed, then 20. He finally disappeared, and I let myself breathe again until I noticed him standing at the edge of the lot near the trees, staring from the shadows. I should have called the cops, but what would I even say? There's a guy just standing there. So I tried to keep calm, stocking shelves and checking the clock every few minutes. Around 3, the door chimed again. It was him. This time his hood was down. His face was pale, with heavy bags under his eyes. He walked right past the counter toward the back. I couldn't see him for a second. Then I heard his footsteps near the employee-only door. "Hey, you can't go back there," I shouted. He stepped back into view and smirked. "You're jumpy. What are you so scared of?" He reached into his hoodie pocket, and I swear I thought he was about to pull out a weapon. Instead, he tossed a crumpled dollar bill on the counter. "Pack of matches." I handed them over, my hands shaking. He smiled, whispered, "See you soon," and walked out. I locked the door behind him. The next morning, my manager told me someone had tried setting the dumpster on fire the night before. The fire department found a half-empty pack of matches lying nearby, same brand I had sold. I never saw him again, but when I'm alone at night in that gas station, I still hear his voice in my head. "See you soon." In 2019, I worked at a gas station right off I-40 near Nashville. It was busier than the rural ones, lots of truckers and travelers, but after 2 in the morning, things usually went quiet. One rainy night, the door chimed and a woman walked in. She looked maybe late 40s, wearing an oversized denim jacket. Her hair was stringy and damp, and she clutched a faded pink purse like it was her lifeline. Her eyes immediately unsettled me, wide, unblinking, like she hadn't slept in days. She came straight to the counter. "Do you mind if I stay in here for a while?" I hesitated. We weren't supposed to let people hang around unless they bought something. I told her that, so she pulled out a crumpled dollar bill and asked for coffee. She poured herself a cup, sat at a table in the corner, and just watched. She didn't drink it. She just stared out the window, then back at me. Every time I looked her way, her head would snap toward me with this faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. After about half an hour, I walked over. "Everything all right, ma'am?" She tilted her head, smile never fading. "He's waiting for me," she whispered. My skin crawled. "Who's waiting for you?" I asked. She just sipped her coffee, eyes locked on mine. For the next hour, she sat there, whispering to herself, words like door and watching. Once, clear as day, I heard her say, "Don't let him in." By 4, I couldn't take it anymore. I called the non-emergency police line, explaining that there was a woman acting unstable, and I felt unsafe. They said they'd send someone. Not 5 minutes later, she stood up suddenly and walked to the counter. She leaned in so close I could smell her sour breath. "You called them, didn't you?" she hissed. I stammered, What do you mean? Her smile widened. He told me you would. He told me you'd betray me. Before I could respond, the door chimed and a random cues. Tomer walked in, the woman's face twisted with pure terror. She dropped her cup of coffee and bolted outside into the rain. By the time the police arrived, she was long gone. I figured that was the end of it, until 2 nights later. Around 3 in the morning, I looked toward the front window. She was there, standing outside, her face pressed against the glass, staring at me. When I reached for the phone, she ran off into the dark. The police never found her, and I never saw her again. But I'll never forget her words. Don't let him in. Whoever she was talking about. I still wonder if she was warning me. Back in 2020, I worked nights at a gas station off Route 66 in Oklahoma. It was one of those stations that stays open all night, but doesn't really get much business after 2 a.m. Except for truckers and the occasional traveler, the place was usually dead quiet. One Friday night, things were going normally until about 1:30 a.m. when an old beat-up pickup truck pulled into the lot. It was loud, muffler dragging, headlights so dim I thought they were about to give out. The driver pulled up to pump 3 but didn't get out right away. I was sitting behind the counter watching the cameras, waiting for him to come inside or start fueling up. But he didn't. He just sat there. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He was still sitting in the truck with the engine running. I finally walked around the counter to get a better look. From what I could see, he was just staring straight ahead, both hands on the wheel. He hadn't moved an inch. I grabbed the store phone and dialed out to the pump intercom. Hey man, everything all right out there? No response. I hung up and watched for another couple minutes, but the guy never budged. At that point, my nerves were starting to get to me. Sometimes we'd get drunk drivers or people nodding off behind the wheel, but this felt different. Finally, the truck door creaked open, and the man climbed out. He looked like he was in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. Long, scraggly hair, dirty jeans, flannel shirt. He didn't go to the pump, though. He just stood there in the lot, staring at the store. I thought maybe he was waiting for me to come outside, so I stayed put behind the counter. After a long minute, he walked slowly to the front doors and came inside. I gave him my usual, "How's it going tonight?" He didn't answer. He just walked past the counter into the aisles, dragging his boots across the floor. He picked up random items, jerk, buy candy bars, a magazine, stared at them, then set them back down. Every so often, he'd look toward the front door, like he was checking for someone. Finally, he came up to the counter with nothing in his hands. He just leaned forward and said, "What time do you close?" I told him, "We're 24 hours. He stared at me for a long moment, then muttered, "That's good. That's real good." Then he walked back out to his truck and climbed in. I figured he'd drive off, but once again, he just sat there. By now, it was after 2. I kept glancing at the security monitors, trying to decide if I should call the cops, but technically he wasn't doing anything illegal, just sitting there. At 2:45, another car pulled in, a younger guy in a sedan. He went to pump 4, fueled up quick, and drove off. The whole time, the man in the pickup didn't move. Just sat there with his lights on, watching. Around 3 a.m., I'd had enough. I picked up the phone and called the sheriff's department, telling them there was a suspicious vehicle in the lot. While I was still on the phone, I noticed the truck door opening again. The man stepped out and started walking slowly back toward the store. I whispered to the dispatcher, "He's coming back inside." The guy pushed through the doors, and this time he had something in his hand, a folded piece of paper. He walked up to the counter, laid it down, and said, "For you." Then he turned around and walked right back out. I stared at the paper for a good 30 seconds before touching it. My gut told me not to, but curiosity got the better of me. I unfolded it. Scrawled in shaky handwriting were 3 words, "Don't go home." Before I could even process it, the flashing lights of a cruiser filled the lot. The deputy pulled in, and the old man finally drove off. The deputy followed him for a bit, but came back 20 minutes later saying the truck had turned down a dirt road and disappeared into the woods. He asked to see the note, and when I handed it over, he frowned. "Looks like nonsense. Maybe the guy's mentally ill." That might have been the explanation, but I'll tell you, When my shift ended at 7, I didn't go straight home. I drove around aimlessly for an hour with my heart pounding, too scared to pull into my own driveway. Because the way that man looked at me when he handed over that note, I couldn't shake the feeling he knew exactly where I lived. I never saw the man or that truck again, but I still have nightmares about that note. Don't go home. I don't know if it was a threat or a warning, but either way, it still chills me to the bone. Back in 2017, I worked at a 24-hour gas station outside Flagstaff, Arizona. It wasn't a big place, just 4 pumps, a small convenience store, and a single bathroom in the back that locked from the inside. One night around 12:30, a man came in to use the restroom. Normal enough, but after about 15 minutes I realized he hadn't come out. I walked over and knocked lightly. "Everything all right in there?" No response. I waited another few minutes, then knocked again, harder. "Sir, we've got other customers who might need the restroom." Silence. By now it had been 20 minutes. I grabbed the spare key from under the counter, but when I tried it, the door wouldn't budge. It was locked from the inside. That didn't make sense. The key was supposed to override the lock. I felt a chill crawl up my neck. I knocked again, louder. "Sir, I'm going to have to open the door." Still nothing. I walked back toward the counter, debating whether to call the police. That's when the door creaked open on its own. I turned back and saw it swinging slowly, the light inside flickering. The bathroom was empty. I froze in place, my mind scrambling. I knew I had seen that man go in, tall, bald, heavy-set, wearing a black jacket. I'd watched him walk past the counter and close the door behind him. There was no way he'd slipped out without me noticing. I walked to the doorway and looked inside. The room smelled faintly of bleach and cigarette smoke. The sink was dripping, and the mirror had a streak across it, like someone had wiped it with their hand. But otherwise, nothing. I stood there a minute, then shrugged it off. Maybe he'd come out while I was stalking something and I just hadn't noticed. But here's the thing. I never left the front counter. Not once. Shaking it off, I went back to my stool. Maybe I was just tired. About half an hour later, a trucker came in. He paid for our gas and asked to use the restroom. I told him it was open. A few minutes later, he came back to the counter looking uneasy. "You got somebody else in there?" he asked. "No," I said. "Why?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I swear while I was washing my hands, someone knocked on the stall door. Hard, but nobody was there." My blood ran cold. I tried to laugh it off, but he didn't seem convinced. He shook his head, muttered something about creepy places in the middle of nowhere, and left. The rest of the night, I couldn't stop glancing at that bathroom door. At one point, I swore I heard faint tapping from inside. 3 slow knocks, spaced apart. I didn't check. I couldn't. When morning shift came in, I told my coworker about it. He gave me a weird look and said, "Oh yeah, that bathroom? They say some guy OD'd in there a few years back. Customers sometimes complain about noises. I just ignore it." I wanted to believe he was messing with me, but the look on his face said otherwise. I never worked another overnight there without keeping that bathroom door propped open. Even then, sometimes I'd hear the sound of the lock clicking shut on its own. I still don't know what happened to the man I saw walk in that night, but every time I think back to those knocks on the stall, I wonder if he ever really left.